ready to record.
May I? Fire! Yes! I didn't know collecting data could be this much fun. We're dropping a seismic air gun in the Sea of Galilee to scan an underwater anomaly that could be connected to the biblical legend known as Miriam's Well, providing a historical link to the story of Exodus. I like this. Okay, fire it again! To get a clear digital picture of what lies in the murky waters below, we do this again. Fire! And again. Fire! And again. Fire it again! A total of 8 charges are set off in a circle around the anomaly we found in the sea below. This seismic survey of the area has generated enough data to form a 3D image on a computer.
Okay, let's look at this first. And we see this location of the shot points where we made the noise. And this is a higher resolution image of the structure. And what is important here to see is that some of the reflection comes from the structure which is buried by sediments.
Oh, it continues under the sediment here.
It continues under the sediment, so
Wow.
it means that the sediment accumulated after the structure was built.
Right.
Based on this sediment accumulated above the base, we assume that it was built about 4,000 years ago minimum, or perhaps even earlier.
So we're in the Bronze Age here. In terms of our Exodus story, we're in the neighborhood.
Okay, so if we take a look at our final product of the imaging, we can see that this image is three-dimensional as we crossed in different profiles, in different angles.
That is unbelievable. Look at that.
Now you can look at a three-dimensional image of the structure.
Look at the size of it. It's huge.
Yeah.
It has to be artificial. Somebody had to bring these huge boulders of basalt and put them one on top of the other. It never happens naturally.
There's no question this was constructed. It's just such an oddity on the seafloor.
And it does not match the topography of the seafloor. So this is also supporting the possibility that it was built and leveled by someone.
So we have this Jerusalem Talmud that says that you could look down into the Sea of Galilee and see this bump. Is there anything else like this that rises up out of the lake here?
No, that's the only place that we know of.
This mysterious man-made structure is the only thing like it in the Sea of Galilee. And it matches the location of where Miriam's Well was said to have been interred.
So the million-dollar question, what the hell is this thing?
Indeed. It reminds me of a cairn, or in the other words, an artificial stone mound covering a tomb underneath.
So is it possible then that there's something inside of this?
It's very possible.
I mean, it would be hugely significant, right?
Exactly. It would be the only one untouched tomb of this kind in this region.
Right. Obviously, this isn't a magic rock that followed the Israelites through the desert, but, you know, is it possible that this is connected to the story of Exodus?
Well, in general, religions are known for incorporating unique landscape features into their own oral tradition.
Right. But you could see how something like this could become the Well of Miriam, something dry that then is consumed by water.
It is definitely a possibility.
The next step will be to investigate exactly what lies inside the structure, which will be an arduous undertaking. For now, though, I'll settle for the amazement of imaging this most mysterious object.
There's much work to be done. This is just the beginning of the story.
The story of Miriam's Well is both miraculous and tragic. Because shortly before reaching the Promised Land, Miriam dies, and her namesake well runs dry. To restore it, God tells Moses not to strike the rock as he did before, but to speak holy words instead. Yet, when the panicked and thirsty Israelites angrily demand that Moses turn the water back on, Moses defies God by striking the rock with his staff. The water comes, but with grave consequences. For his pride and insolence, God punishes Moses by forbidding him from entering the Holy Land with his people. They will cross the Jordan River into Canaan, but first, Moses will die, 120 years old. And it's this final part of his story that's in my head as I set off back into the desert.
I have a nagging question about the Exodus story. And you know, something that would really help to cement this as an historical event would be to find the body of Moses himself. After all, someone this significant must have been buried with some real pomp and circumstance. So I just have one question. Where's Moses?
Turns out there's more than one answer to that question. To learn why, I'm headed back to the Palestinian territories. Here, in the rolling and empty hills of the West Bank, an unlikely sight emerges in the distance. A huge walled compound called Nabi Musa, which translates to the Prophet Moses. Here to greet me is archaeologist and Islamic studies professor Tawfiq Da'adli. Thanks for taking the time, I appreciate it. This is spectacular.
Yeah.
I have questions about the end of the story of Moses. So, okay, if there is a historical Moses, where is this guy? I mean, where was he buried?
According to the biblical tradition, he ended on the other side of the valley,
And he dies where?
at Mount Nebo.
Mount Nebo, so literally just across the way there. Across the Dead Sea in what is now Jordan sits Mount Nebo. This place has been associated with the burial of Moses since at least the 4th century when a church was built here. So over at Mount Nebo, archaeologically, do we have evidence for this burial?
No hard evidence.
Okay.
There is also another story,
Uh-huh.
Islamic tradition.
Moses is mentioned a lot in the Quran.
Yeah, you have more than 130 times his name is mentioned in the Quran, more than any other prophet. According to this tradition, Moses did cross the river and he ended in this side, like where we are standing. The Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven from Jerusalem, which is not so far from here.
Yes, the Dome of the Rock.
The Dome of the Rock, yes.
Yes.
So when he ascended to heaven, in his way, he said, I saw Moses praying on his tomb, and the tomb is believed to be here.
On this side of the Jordan River.
Yeah.
Aha. So we have one tradition over there and one tradition over here.
Yeah.
What evidence is there here? What is at this site?
Here at this side, we have the tomb of Moses.
There's a tomb here
Yeah.
of Moses.
Yes.
Can we see it?
Yeah, it's downstairs.
Please. Here we go. To answer the question of where the prophet Moses is buried, I've come to the Palestinian territories to visit a site called Nabi Musa, and what the Islamic faith contends is his tomb.
Okay, Josh. Here we have the mosque.
Wow.
And here we have the tomb.
The tomb of Moses.
Yes, here. Up, please.
Wow. So this is the burial.
Yeah.
When can we date all of this to?
This is the oldest part of the site. And near the entrance to this mausoleum, there is an inscription from the 13th century, and we have the date. It's 1269.
So the 13th century, we're talking about a few thousand years
Yeah.
after the life of Moses.
Yes.
So do we have any indication of what was in this spot before the building was here?
There are written evidences earlier than the 13th century, but not much earlier,
Okay.
mentioning the tomb of Moses in this area.
But nothing earlier than that.
Something that you can touch? No.
Right, maybe an oral tradition, but it's been lost to history.
Yes.
Okay, so do we know who's inside this?
This was Moses' tomb, is relying on Muslim traditions, and they pointed on this place. And
Right.
since this 13th century point, it became a whole compound, not only the mausoleum and the mosque, it became like a caravanserai, what we call a khan. Like people will come and stay for a few days, they will have food.
So it became like a pilgrimage site.
Yeah.
And what about today? Do people still pilgrimage here? Do people still come here?
Yeah, even from Indonesia, even from India, these people still believe this is the tomb of Nabi Musa.
Has this ever been opened, examined?
It's religion. You don't mix religion with science and excavations, especially in the Holy Land.
So as an archaeologist, this is one of the great challenges, is how to look at the stories of the Bible, the stories of the Quran, and places like this, and find that intersection between faith and history and archaeology, because we don't really know what's here.
Yeah.
But spiritually, it's a place that's true for so many people. And how do we square that off? Because We're never going to be able to open this.
We don't need to open that. Like, we have the inscriptions around the building, so it's a different kind of archaeology. You read the buildings. You don't have to go down and dig the place to see or meet the person who is buried here. For us, you have to accept it.
Even for archaeologists, some things have to be left to faith.
You can't turn over every stone. You have to accept some traditions, some beliefs.
By asking to see what's inside this tomb, I'm knocking on a door that will never open. At Nabi Musa, science and faith have reached an impasse, and neither will yield to the other.